Have you ever wondered how one small piece of land could be the epicenter of one of the longest-standing conflicts in modern history? Welcome to the world of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a complex tale of struggle for territory, religious significance, and political unrest. It's a story that has shaped the course of history, influenced cultures, and continues to impact the lives of millions on a daily basis. Strap in, as today, we dive into the intricate web of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. To understand the conflict, we must journey back in time to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was during this period that we see the rise of two powerful ideologies that would shape the Middle East: Zionism and Arab nationalism. Zionism, a national movement for the return of the Jewish people to their homeland and the resumption of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel, was gaining traction. It was a response to centuries of persecution, where Jews dreamt of a safe haven where they could live free from prejudice and fear. Parallel to this, Arab nationalism was on the rise, a movement pushing for the independence and unity of Arab peoples. The Ottoman Empire, which had ruled over the Arabs for centuries, was crumbling, and the Arabs saw an opportunity to establish their own independent states. Then came the whirlwind of World War I. The world was in chaos, and in the midst of this, Britain made a promise that would have far-reaching consequences: the Balfour Declaration. In 1917, Britain expressed its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. However, Britain also made promises to the Arabs, hinting at a post-war independent Arab state. After the war, Britain took control of Palestine through a League of Nations mandate. The British Mandate of Palestine was a complex and challenging period. Jewish immigration increased under the mandate, fueling tensions with the Arab population. The British tried to balance the aspirations of both the Jews and the Arabs, but this tightrope act only stoked the flames of conflict. By the mid-20th century, the stage was set for a conflict that would span generations. The seeds sown in the late 19th and early 20th centuries had taken root, grown, and were now ready to bear the bitter fruits of dispute and discord. The dreams of a Jewish homeland and Arab independence were on a collision course, and the land of Palestine was caught in the crossfire. The stage was set for a conflict that would span generations. The year 1948 marked a pivotal chapter in this tale, the creation of the State of Israel. The story of this birth is complex and layered, a web of political, cultural, and historical threads that intertwine and knot. To understand how we arrived here, let's rewind a year to 1947. The United Nations, in a bid to resolve the escalating tensions between Jews and Arabs in Palestine, proposed a partition plan. This plan aimed to divide Palestine into independent Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. But this solution was far from perfect. The proposed Jewish state was a patchwork of disconnected territories, and the Arab state was fragmented. Moreover, this plan was rejected outright by the Arab countries and Palestinian leaders. They argued that it violated the principles of national self-determination in the UN Charter, which granted people the right to decide their own destiny. The following year, in 1948, despite the rejection and amidst the rising tensions, David Ben-Gurion, the head of the Jewish Agency, declared the independence of a new Jewish state, Israel. Almost immediately, this declaration triggered a full-blown war. Arab countries, including Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, and Syria, launched an attack against Israel, marking the start of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. This war was not just a battle of arms, it was a battle of narratives, of identities, of claims to the same land. It was a war that would displace hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes, a mass exodus that Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The emergence of Israel was more than just the birth of a new state. It was a geopolitical event that would reshape the Middle East and set the stage for a conflict that has spanned over 7 decades. The birth of Israel intensified the conflict, leaving a deep scar on the region. Scene script. Fast forward to the present day, a cycle of violence, peace talks, and failed resolutions. We find ourselves in a whirlwind of historical events, pivotal moments that have shaped the current landscape of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Let's dive into a few of them. In the late 60s, the Six-Day War exploded onto the scene. It was a swift and decisive victory for Israel, a David overcoming multiple Goliaths. The result? Israel's borders expanded, absorbing territories like the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Golan Heights. Then came the Yom Kippur War of the early 70s, a surprise attack orchestrated by Egypt and Syria against Israel on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. It was a bloody conflict that ended in a stalemate, but it shifted the dynamics of power in the region and the perception of Israel's invincibility. The late 20th century saw the eruption of the Intifadas, Palestinian uprisings against Israeli occupation. They were characterized by civil disobedience, protests, and unfortunately, a tragic loss of life on both sides. Then there were the Oslo Accords, a beacon of hope in the 90s. These agreements between Israel and Palestine were supposed to lay the groundwork for peace and a two-state solution. But that hope was short-lived, as both sides failed to fulfill their commitments, leading to a resurgence of violence and mistrust. In recent years, we've seen a continuation of the cycle. Outbursts of violence are followed by attempts at resolution, but these efforts often fall short. International communities and organizations have tried to mediate, but their efforts are often hampered by geopolitical interests and the complexity of the conflict itself. We've seen a series of United Nations resolutions, international peace plans, and bilateral negotiations. Yet, each attempt has been met with resistance, mistrust, and ultimately failure. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a cycle, a carousel that seems to endlessly spin without finding a stopping point. It's a cycle fueled by decades of resentment, fear, and a deep-seated longing for justice and recognition. Despite numerous attempts, a lasting solution remains elusive. This conflict is more than just a dispute over land. It's about identity, faith, and survival. At the heart of this conflict are two peoples whose lives have been deeply intertwined in a narrative of struggle and resilience. Imagine waking up each day with the uncertainty of what it might bring. That's the daily life in this region. The hustle and bustle of Jerusalem's old city, the laughter of children playing in the narrow alleys of Gaza, the solemn prayers at the Western Wall, and the call to prayer from minarets in Ramallah. These scenes of normalcy, however, are often overshadowed by the looming sense of tension and unpredictability. The economy, too, bears the brunt of this conflict. The barriers to trade, the high unemployment rates, the restrictions on movement, all these factors have led to a struggling economy on both sides. Yet amidst these challenges, we witness the tenacity of the human spirit. The bustling markets brimming with spices and textiles, the tech startups in Tel Aviv, the olive farmers in the West Bank, these are testaments to a people's determination to thrive against the odds. Education and healthcare are also significantly impacted. Schools and hospitals are often caught in the crossfire, disrupting the learning journey of children and access to critical health services. Yet, teachers persist, doctors continue to heal, and students with their dreams and ambitions remain the beacon of hope for a better future. This conflict has shaped the identities and perspectives of Israelis and Palestinians in profound ways. It has become a part of their collective consciousness, shaping their narratives of self and other, their sense of belonging and displacement, their hopes and fears. Yet amidst this complex web of emotions and experiences, there's a shared yearning for peace, for a life free from conflict, for a future where their children can grow up without fear. In the midst of turmoil, life goes on, shaped by the echoes of a complex past. And as we delve deeper into this narrative, we begin to understand that this is not just about territory or resources, but about two people's quest for recognition, dignity, and a place to call home. So, where does this leave us in understanding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. We journeyed back to the historical roots, delving deep into the cultural and religious ties both Israelis and Palestinians have to this land. We saw how centuries of history have shaped the identities and claims of both these groups. We then moved forward to the emergence of Israel, a pivotal moment that ignited the modern conflict. The establishment of a Jewish state in the wake of the horrors of World War II was seen as a beacon of hope for many Jews. Yet, it came with a cost. The displacement of Palestinians, a people who had called this land home for generations. Next, we explored the vicious cycle of conflict, an unending loop of violence and retaliation. We saw how political decisions and actions have repeatedly escalated tensions, perpetuating a climate of fear and mistrust. Finally, we recognized that this conflict is more than just a territorial dispute. It's about people. It impacts daily life, shaping the realities of those who live in its shadow. It's about lost homes, lost lives, and lost opportunities. As we continue to watch the story unfold, we are reminded of the complexity of this conflict and the search for a peaceful resolution. And in the end, it's not just about land, it's about people.